Welcome to the Startup Support Surgery podcast, where we light the entrepreneurial spark in medics and healthcare professionals. Join me, Dr. Jo Watkins, GP, business coach and co-founder of The How People, on a journey to discover where your medical know-how meets the business world. This will help you find some clarity on how to balance work, passions and family so that you can gain more freedom and control over your life, but also continue to help people, which is actually why most of us went into medicine to start with. Embarking on this entrepreneurial adventure is not easy. It is a roller coaster of emotions, but it's hugely rewarding and exciting in the process. Drawing on my 20 years of blending medicine and business as a GP, I am here to share experiences, insights and lessons. Expect lively chats, expert interviews and real-life stories from medics who have taken their own path. Let's break free from traditional healthcare norms and explore more innovative ways of making a real difference to people's health and well-being, along with paving the way for a brighter future for us as healthcare professionals. Oh, don't miss my free PDF called From Stethoscope to Startup, which is an 11-page guide in the show notes full of practical help and advice. This is your roadmap to kickstarting your journey with us. Enjoy the show. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while and thinking, I know I want to do something different, I just need help getting clear on what to do and what that actually is, then Clarity is the place to start. Over 30 days, you get the chance to work one-to-one with me and to come along to the group calls inside my main program as well, so that you can start to get a feel of the support and coaching and community that is needed around you to do something different. This is perfect for people right at the beginning of processing all their thoughts and ideas, but it's also great for those who have already got some of the sprinkles, as I say, in place. Maybe that's a website, an Instagram page, an idea, some new training, but you've still got no real traction and no steady clients coming in. And that can give you the feeling that maybe it's just not going to happen. By the end of Clarity, if it feels like the right fit for you and for me, then there's an opportunity to come into the main year-long group program for deeper support, coaching and community. If this sounds like something you're interested in, then please have a look at www.jowatkins.com, where you'll find a link. Plus, there's an apply to work with me form if you're really not sure what sort of help and support you need. Fill that in and I will get back to you. Hello and welcome to the podcast. This week, I am chatting to Lucy Buckley, who is a pharmacist, an entrepreneur and the founder of Digital Health Assurance. Now, I know that CQC is not everybody's favourite topic. It's something that everybody worries about when they're entering into a clinical scenario, which requires it. But honestly, stick with it because this conversation is about so much more, but covers the stuff you need to know as well. We also talk about Lucy's journey into entrepreneurship, what it was like for her raising investment and building a healthcare business from the ground up. We talk about why strong foundations really matter. There are some really honest reflections on what it's actually like to grow a business within the healthcare sector. If you've ever thought about setting up a clinical service, a clinic, offering private services, or you're just really curious about what happens behind the scenes of building a healthcare business, you're going to get lots from this one. I hope you enjoy the conversation. And Lucy's lesser known fact is that you share a birthday with your daughter.
Yes, I do. And I actually really love that.
It's so gorgeous. Was it the best birthday present ever?
Yeah, it was amazing. Because she was due the day before, and I knew I wanted to have her on my birthday, but I didn't think I'd get that lucky. And I went out for lunch, and around 4:30, I was like, oh, this baby might be coming. And I got to the hospital, and I was like, is there any chance? And they were like, I don't think so. Maybe 11:59. But she rocked up at 10:44. Not one to miss a party, is Matilda.
That's beautiful. So you can have shared birthday celebrations now forever.
Yes, it's really good fun actually.
Oh, that's lovely. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me. You're up in Manchester, aren't you? In my old stomping ground, I think.
Yes, I'm based in a place called Disbury, which is South Manchester. And thank you for the invite. It's really fun to be here today.
Well, we originally tried to talk, and we were just remembering before we hit record. I think we had a date booked in September, and life got in the way for me. And now we've rescheduled. It's January 2026. So there will be many reasons why that the universe put that on hold for us to talk. So we haven't actually spoken since that time that we organised that original podcast. So it's lovely to have you here. You are going to cover and talk about something that pretty much every medic that I speak to asks me about somewhere along the line, the CQC thing. But you're also here, we're going to talk about business growth, marketing. I'd love to know more about your story of how you got here. So why don't we start with that? Why don't you tell us, obviously, what you do and how you got to this point, and I'll sort of pick it apart and ask you some questions from what you get stuck into.
So, my journey into entrepreneurship started when I was about 17. And it was when I passed my driving test. My dad and my uncle, who are both serial entrepreneurs, used to meet up on a Wednesday and a Sunday, and they used to go to the pub and they used to chat about business. And when I passed my driving test, they're like, "Oh, hang on, have we got a designated driver?" So I used to drive them to the pub, and I used to sit there and just listen. And I was really intrigued and fascinated by these stories and these business ideas. And, I think I sort of learned what the true definition of a fag packet analysis was during those days. Then off I went to university to study pharmacy in Cardiff. Had a brilliant time, loved that. Registered as a pharmacist in 2005, and then just decided to take a year out to locum. I did 6 months in community and 6 months in hospital. I think that locuming made me feel like I had my own business a little bit. And then I realised I really missed the science. So I love science. Science is, I'm really drawn to the science. So I went back to university and did a PhD at the University of Manchester, and that was looking at how we could create a mathematical model to enhance the delivery of drugs to the brain in the early stages of drug discovery and development. And I was really lucky because I was sponsored by GlaxoSmithKline, and what that meant was I got to spend time in their labs in Harlow, and that was kind of my first sort of taste of industry. And I really liked that sort of fast-paced, challenging environment. So after my PhD, I went into the pharmaceutical industry and had a variety of roles across several pharma companies. But just by luck, these roles sort of took me from this early stage of drug discovery and development right through the product life cycle to launch. It was really brilliant experience. And what I really learned there was we can create incredible patient safety cultures and be highly commercial.
Mhm.
If you think about big pharma, they're often very successful and they can't promote prescription medicines to the public. And throughout these roles, there was this sort of strand of compliance, which I know isn't everyone's favourite topic. But when you reframe that compliance into patient safety, that really interests me. So in 2017, I went on maternity leave and, as you know, had Matilda on my birthday. And when Matilda was 3 weeks old, I was getting a bit itchy again because I don't like to sit still.
3 weeks.
And that's when I launched my first business, Dr. Fertility. And we started off as an e-commerce website because that was just a quick way to get started and sort of test the market, get some product market fit. And what me and my co-founder did was we curated the better fertility products on the market and developed a quality assurance process to sort of review them because there was a lot of rubbish out there. I mean, we came across the tampons that claim to unblock your fallopian tubes, and that probably make you wince. And we also developed high quality evidence based fertility education. And this was before there was this sort of interest in women's health, and we started to see that sort of movement. So we did that for about 12 months. We got quite a lot of traction. Had a brilliant business mentor, and off we went to pitch to him. And he said, "Right, ladies, I think you've proved a point. And if you want to take this seriously, you might want to consider, leaving your jobs and raising some investment."
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started to learn about the investment world. And we raised £1 million seed investment. And we took this e-commerce website and transformed it into a CQC registered online primary care provider for fertility. So this is when I started to learn about CQC.
Right.
And just being really honest, I actually really enjoyed this. I know a lot of people shy away from it and a lot of people are feared of CQC, but I've done a lot of different compliance roles, but CQC is probably my favourite. And you're laughing now, Joanne. I like CQC. So what we did was sort of coming from Big Pharma, where I'd learned that, we needed to have this sort of patient safety at the core. We needed to build solid foundations in the business, not only to protect our patients, but in order to scale commercially. We brought on a couple of key advisors. One, or both of them I still work with today.
Right.
So we brought on a lady called Helen Carton, who was a former inspector with expertise in digital health. And she supported us on this journey. But we also worked with another pharmacist called Hiran Patel, and he set up one of the first online GP services that was registered with the Care Quality Commission. So when we sort of had this explosion of digital health and the regulators were still learning, he got inspected and he'd done quite a good job of it. And the CQC sort of brought together a task force of people who'd, shown good practice. And they went on to help the CQC to develop the digital health regulations.
Right.
And Hiran was part of that. So I worked very closely with Hiran. And then we brought in Helen to sort of do like a kind of mock audit and sort of that third party external validation to check that we were on the right track. So that was my journey to CQC. We did another fundraise. I think we raised about 1.8 million. Things were going really well. And then COVID hit. We got through COVID and we were due to fundraise again. Now, at this point, the funding landscape had changed and this then became much more difficult. To cut a really long story short, we spent about 12 months trying to get this fundraise together when previously, don't get me wrong, fundraising isn't easy, but it felt like energy in had equaled results out. And this third fundraise was really difficult. And we had an investor pull out of our round at the 11th hour.
Right.
So that was like a real low moment. And I think it's important to share this story because business does sometimes feel like a roller coaster or a game of snakes and ladders. And that was a tough time. But all was not lost because Hiran came along and said, I think this is a good business. And how do you feel about me buying the assets and us doing something with that? Because there's too much good work here to be lost. So what we did was that fertility clinic is now the digital health assurance company, which sounds like a bit of a pivot, but the services that we offer are built on everything we did for ourselves. So we have that lived experience of knowing that journey and knowing what needs to be done. So in terms of our core services, we build and implement regulatory roadmaps. A lot of that work is CQC, but there are other elements that come out of that, like your cyber essentials, your DSPT. We also do some medical device work. We build clinical services. We help people to launch their new clinics. And even though I did try and shy away from this, but I can't. And we do some investor readiness and help businesses to prepare for that investment and advise on how to reach out to investors and how to pitch and those sorts of things.
Right.
So in addition to that, I wear a couple of other hats as well. So I am the governance lead for an organisation called DICE. We are the Digital Clinical Excellence Forum, and it was set up and is chaired by Professor James Kingsland, OBE, who around the same time as the sort of digital health regulations were coming out with CQC, he brought together a group of independent providers that were CQC registered or GPHC registered to improve quality of care and patient safety in the independent digital health sector. Absolutely love that role. It's a sharing best practice forum, non-commercial, sharing best practice. And we get to meet with the regulators every sort of 6 weeks. So it's really great at keeping up to date and learning from each other. It's really, really great group to be a part of. I do a couple of board advisory roles, and I'm also a Royal Society entrepreneur in residence at the University of Manchester. And that sort of scratches my academic itch. It's really great to be back there. And the role there is to bridge that gap between academia and industry and help people to commercialise the science. And again, sharing that lived experience, which for me isn't always just the factual stuff and the practical stuff. It's the emotional roller coaster
Mm.
and trying to normalise that for people on the journey.
Amazing. I mean, how your life has all fitted into what you're doing now, every single lived experience, every opportunity, every conversation, every relationship that you've built feels like it's led to you being able to do all of that, wear all of those hats. And we forget that sometimes. You wouldn't have been able to wear any of those hats had you not had the ups and downs of your own personal experience, would you?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you pick up on that because I sort of describe where I am now. It's like each of these experiences has been a piece of the jigsaw,
Mm.
and it's like they've all started to come together. And I think my advice to anyone would be sometimes when things don't turn out as you'd hoped they would, it's generally something because something better's coming. And what I'm doing now, I'm probably enjoying more than I've ever enjoyed anything else and feel really happy. And there's so many exciting things on the go. So I think it's really quite fulfilling as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, I want to come back. Can we go and we talk a little bit about the whole funding rounds and Dr. Fertility before we get into the CQC stuff? Because I think as medics and healthcare professionals who have been in our world for quite some time, sometimes the only lens that we see around business is watching The Apprentice or Dragon's Den or, reading in the paper or listening to Stephen Bartlett. And it's this very sort of high level, fast growth, lots of money, lots of talk about investment. And it can all feel like a bit of a foreign language, but can you sort of simplify for people listening this whole like first round of investment, second round of investment? You were having the backing at that point financially and through other people to grow a business quickly. Would that be fair to
Yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's such a good point that you picked up on there because a lot of at that early stage of funding, our first round, we had a brilliant angel investor who had a healthcare background. So he was brilliant. And then we had a VC who they were a really great VC, but they were sector agnostic, which I think is just an important point to make.
Yeah.
And I was the only healthcare professional in the team at that point. And I think something I talk about a lot, and especially in my university role, is healthcare is different to other sectors. And we have to treat it differently than other sectors. I truly believe that. Um, Patient safety has to be built in the core of that business. And I think those times were probably some of the most testing times for me as an individual because you're quite vulnerable, you're quite exposed, you're in this new world. Again, you don't know the language. And what I would say to anybody going on through that journey as healthcare professionals, just trust your gut. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. And sometimes you do have to really stand your ground because one thing I will never do is compromise patients for commercial gain.
Mm.
I'm never going to do that. I was really lucky to have Hiran.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big point here about finding your tribe. Hiran had been through the funding. He was he'd built a business. He is a successful serial health tech entrepreneur. And just to have that mentorship in somebody that shared really similar values to me, that I really trusted, made a huge amount of difference.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, going through that first round of funding, another point that I would sort of like to share with people going on this journey is the importance of building those solid foundations in your business. Sometimes you feel under pressure to potentially grow fast and cut corners. Building solid foundations doesn't need to be onerous and it doesn't need to be too costly, but it's so important. And when I say solid foundations, I'm talking about that sort of integrated governance that spreads across your business. As healthcare professionals, we generally focus on clinical governance, but that's a real small part of building a business. we need to look at the governance that stretches across the business. So that could be your sort of clinical governance, your financial governance, your corporate governance, information governance, HR, etc. Because if you don't get those foundations in early on, when you try and grow and scale, you're going to struggle.
Mm,
And that's when you're going to lose momentum.
mm,
And there is a bit of a discussion around compliance debt and how it can accumulate. And once it goes a bit far, it's very difficult to get back. So, my advice would be do build those strong foundations. You don't want to get into a situation where you're trying to scale and your operation isn't robust, and then competitors start to get an advantage because your operational efficiencies are slowing you down. So
mm.
that is something that I would really recommend to people who are thinking about going on this journey.
Yeah. And I think what you describe at the beginning of that is something I think we should highlight as well, is that medics and pharmacists and healthcare professionals, we are hardworking, bright, great learners, happy to do anything to work hard. There aren't that many people who have got to where we have got to without having put a
Yeah,
shift in.
100%.
And therefore, for investors and for people within the industry sector, I think doctors are very, very valued, right? Or they're seen as people that would be a huge attribute to a company. And I've heard a few kind of really disturbing stories recently about, medics having that the initial idea of something that they think might work and might be needed, going on one of these sort of like health tech accelerator programs, or being matched with somebody with lots of money, and then you've got somebody with the tech attributes and the potential sort of connections to make this thing happen, that matching happening really quickly, loads of money being thrown at that business at that very, very early, before there's even been any sort of market research done or any sort of smallest thing taken to market. The money's been ploughed into it, and before you know it, you're on this trajectory. And I've heard a few horror stories about people, putting in their life savings at this very, very early stage, feeling the matching of the money from the sort of tech side of things has been needed. I don't know. I mean, is that something that it's almost like the Daily Mail headlines, or do you hear of this as well?
Yeah, I think to that point, once you raise that money, it's like the clock starts ticking really quickly. And that is when the pressure's on, and you feel like you're on a treadmill and you can't get off it. And there is a lot of pressure. I think going back to your point about healthcare professionals, we are incredibly hardworking. And you're right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of transferable skills, and that's something that I do really try and promote in my entrepreneur in residence, is the transferable skills from academia and clinical roles into the business world. I think investors sometimes overlook that. Not all, but especially your sector agnostic investors. I had to work really hard in the boardroom to be heard. Um, I had a co-founder who had a commercial background, and initially felt that they weren't really very interested in the compliance, the patient safety, and that was all a bit boring. But we got a new chairman who was absolutely fantastic, and that really changed the dynamic of the boardroom, because when you register with CQC, you are first and foremost a healthcare provider. You're not a tech business.
Yeah.
And that is an important thing to remember. But you're right, there are absolutely lots of horror stories. And I would say to people, it's all about choosing the right investors. So we didn't have the outcome that we wanted, but we had really good investors.
Mm,
And I think one of the reasons I got through that difficult time in my life, and I'm not saying it wasn't very difficult because it was because there wasn't any big fallout. Um, and I think for me, the sort of person that I am, I think that I would have found that really difficult. So I had the right co-founder. We'd been friends previously, very, very close friends. We'd lived together. Um, we had a great relationship. We stuck together like glue, and we were lucky with our investors. And when we had to start closing things down, everyone was really good and really supportive. So I
mm,
think there are horror stories out there. It's about choosing the right investors, and you have to do your due diligence on those people. like not so much now, but when we were when we were with those investors, I'd get contacted quite a lot by people, by founders saying, what was your experience like of working with these people? And I would always say, go with your gut because it's normally right. And there's some interesting like investment deals and models out there, but do your due diligence, check it out. And if something doesn't feel right, it's probably because it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be afraid to pick up the phone, find out from somebody else that's worked together with this organization or this investor in the past, and yeah, do your homework. And there's a whole episode 43, I was just looking back, with Amber Verdagel, who talks a lot about investment and her growth business. So if you're interested in this, please have a listen to that as well. And I'm sure Lucy would be happy to talk to you if you're looking at going down that route in terms of needing that investment and funding rounds. Most of the people that I work with are individuals, service-based healthcare clinicians who are wanting to go out there and start personal brands or businesses, either within private health organizations or for themselves online. And it's a different kettle of fish for that. We like you to, ideally you don't want to be putting a load of other people's money into that, so that you have control in those early days as you get traction out there. And so I don't, it's not the first thing that I advise people to do, for good reason. And I think, and now are you seeing more businesses starting on that sort of more organic, taking one step at a time thing? Do you deal with businesses like that as well?
Yeah, so we have a mix, and I think a lot of it depends on your model, I think, as well. So we needed to raise investment for Dr. Fertility because we were building technology, we were launching, a big clinic. For this business that I have now, I don't need to. It's a different business model. So I've not had to go down that journey, but we are like, it seems to be getting harder and harder to raise investment, especially for early stage companies. There seems to be a lack of early stage funding, especially in the north of England. And we are seeing people looking more for sort of the grants and going down, bootstrapping and going down different routes. What I would say is there isn't one size fits all.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a founder last week who'd managed to get a little bit of grant money. They'd not had loads of money, but it was incredible to see what they'd done on so little.
Yeah.
And what I would say to founders is don't believe that money always has to be a blocker. Obviously, investment can help you accelerate your growth and scale depending on your business model. But I think when you're trying to prove that early stage product market fit, then you're still learning yourself at that
Yeah.
point. So I think it's when it's the right time as well in your particular business.
Yeah, so we're looking at that product market fit, but the fact that you are going to have to invest, you have to invest time and money if you want to start a business. That's the reality, is that it doesn't just happen. But there are ways of minimizing the kind of the extra money, but giving yourself, I sort of suggest people borrow, like a director's loan off themselves. So invest in your own business yourself first. And then, go to family members, friends and family. Is there anyone there that will back you? Is there anyone that will lend you £5,000 or whatever you need to get started? That sort of money is going to be needed to get you started. For example, we haven't even started talking about CQC, but if you need to do that sort of thing for your business, that's going to cost you. You need to find the right communities to support you. You need to have software. It's all going to cost money. So there's got to be some money coming into the business, but just trying to work out what that amount is that is going to enable you to try and work out, first of all, whether you enjoy running a business, because that's not something that everybody enjoys doing. And secondly, whether there is a product market fit and this is worth the time anyway.
Yeah.
Should we talk a
And I
bit
think
about
you've
that?
got to be true to yourself on that. And that's the
Yeah.
first thing when we get sent a lot of investment decks. And the first, there's a couple of questions I sort of ask, and I won't spend too much time going into that because for today. But if we did want to talk about that again, we could. But for me, when I'm looking at a healthcare deck, I want to know, first of all, is it safe and does it work? Because if you don't have those two things, you're never going to get your product market fit.
Yeah.
And also that there is a genuine need. And you have to be true to yourself. And that's really tough because sometimes you have this idea and you want to set up a business and you're really excited about it, but you have to be true to yourself and you have to do your research and you have to validate that there is a genuine need for your product or your tech or your service. And that's something I always advise people to do.
Mm. Don't miss out that stage. Very
No, it's
important.
really important because you can get carried away.
Oh,
And the thing with business is, it's going to take up a lot of your time and it's all consuming.
mm,
So doing that groundwork at the start before you embark on a journey, I always highly recommend that.
mm. Okay. Can we talk a little bit about CQC? So I have a lot of people maybe that have done the lifestyle medicine diploma, or people that have done menopause training, or a lot of people who've trained as coaches, which is slightly different. But if somebody is starting up a clinic, virtually or in person, as a doctor, when do they need CQC?
So you will need CQC when you start to provide a regulated activity. And there is a bit of a myth out there that, oh, I can just see a few patients. No, you can't see any patients till if you're providing a regulated activity, you need to be registered with the CQC.
Okay. So a regulated activity would be,
So, for example, Dr. Fertility was registered under the category of the treatment of disease, disorder, or injury. And sometimes it's quite difficult to work out what your regulated activity is, especially in the digital space where we're creating all these innovative models of care.
mm,
And there's a lot of sort of new stuff. We're not following that traditional, I'm setting up a GP service or I'm setting up a dental practice. We now have a team of we have a multidisciplinary team, and within our team, we have former CQC inspectors, and we have one that specialises in registration. So that's something we work closely with people to make sure that they are registering under the right category.
and you support a business who requires CQC, you support them with their application all the way through to their final interview when they get the CQC, and then beyond. Do you support people?
Yeah, so we pride ourselves on finding a way to support anyone regardless of their business case or budget. So some people we do a very light touch. So it might be we've had a go at this application. Could you just review it and check it for us? And other people come to us and are like, we want you to do everything and build us this clinic. And then there's a lot of people in between. But in terms of the way we sort of look at the journey, if you like, we have a lot of people coming to us who are perhaps not quite ready to go on that journey yet. So we offer, I call it a pre-registration service. But really what that is, that's your clinical service development. What is your service? What is your offering? And within our team, we have a pharmacist who has 30 years experience in service development, and he leads on that work stream. He's got a lot of experience in digital as well. So once we know what your service is, we can then take you through into that registration process. And this is where we start with these solid foundations. And we take you on that journey of that application, and we look at who's in your team and who's going to take which roles and responsibilities, and start building out those policies and procedures and systems that are going to underpin the care that you're going to deliver. So we get your application in, and then the key thing once that application is in, you have to be ready to launch your clinic the day that you you get your CQC registration. And doing your application is one thing, but launching a clinic is another thing, because you've actually got to do the job and do the work, and it's got to run. So there's a big piece of work to help people with those systems, processes, clinical operations, how that's actually going to run. And we can train people alongside that. We do a lot of work training and mentoring registered managers, nominated individuals. Now then you're going to go live, and that's really scary.
Mm,
Like, oh, I'm now running a real healthcare organization. And if you think about how we typically, as healthcare professionals, work in the healthcare system, we rock up at the hospital, the GP service, the dentists, and we just crack on and work within our competencies, but in a framework that we're probably not so conscious exists. And by going through this journey, for me, I think this has probably been one of the best things I've done in terms of my own personal development, is to really understand the governance and the regulation that sits behind all of that. But what we've then got to do is make sure that your service is safe and well led, effective, responsive, and caring. And it's that continuous monitoring and striving for that quality improvement. How are we assuring ourselves that we are meeting the regulations and providing the highest quality care that we can? What's our auditing? What's our monitoring? Are we collecting patient feedback? So there's a phase after that where we can stay on board, and it's a much lighter touch
Mm.
and support people. We also do what we call the sort of mock inspection.
Mm-hmm.
So we come in as a third party independent provider to make sure it's your CQC readiness really, and it's a really prudent thing to do. We did it at Dr. Fertility. It's one of the best things we ever did. We did it not too long after our registration, I think probably about 6 to 9 months afterwards, to go, we've tried our best, but have we got it right? And you don't realise till you start learning about your service that there could be potential single points of failure or the things that need to be improved. But really, our approach to that is we're just your critical friend. We're not here to, we're more like, tell us what's going on and let us help you. There's no judgment. It's a safe place. We just want you to do well. And then the other work we do is we often get called when people are like, oh, CQC have rang and they're coming in 2 weeks.
Right.
So I quite like that work 'cause I like this sort of fast-paced challenging. that lends itself well to my personality. But we can go in and sort of really help you make sure and it depends where we are in that time, but we will do our job will be to get the best out of you.
Yeah.
And we also do some crisis management. So if people are having discussions with the regulators and things have been found that aren't quite right, and they need that expert support to get things sorted, we can help with that as well.
So that all sounds amazing, but slightly daunting. I'm just imagining somebody who's just done their lifestyle medicine diploma, who's been sitting there thinking about what colour sage green they're going to have in their logo, and how they're going to be skipping off on a Friday afternoon once they've started up their clinic. This all sounds slightly terrifying. Are there any ways around having to have your own CQC regulation? Are there any, I think I know the answer to this, but you can't shortcut this, can you?
No, and no, and I think there's that conversation around regulation being an enabler, not a barrier, and a competitive advantage. And I think we should embrace it. The way we work our job is to make it as easy and as simple as possible. Now, something I do say to clients, we all tend to get into this, like, I'm doing this for CQC. And I was that person. So when I was like leading my team and had all this like CQC fear, we have to do this for CQC. I try and remove that now. We just have to do it because it's the right thing to do. And actually, by doing it, it makes everything easier. And the other thing I do like about this journey through CQC, I actually think it really helps you learn how to run a business. Because, and you might not hear many people say that, but for me, learning all about the regulation and the things you have to do, you have to do them all for a really good reason. And that really helps your business. And our goal is to get you into what I call a rhythm. And when your clinic is running in that rhythm, it's a great feeling. And I got there with Dr. Fertility, and it all just runs, and your audits are happening when they should, and your meetings, and you've got your governance structure set up. And that's that's the goal. And then it feels easy. And our role is we don't want it to be onerous.
Yeah.
Our job is to save you time, leverage our expertise, and share experience of what's worked well. And we sort of build in those operational efficiencies as well. And, we can bespoke our advice to if you, for example, we've recently helped a really small clinic. There's just 2 clinicians in that one, right through to people who want to set up a big clinic and scale quickly. So our advice would be sort of proportionate to the type of business as well.
So I guess from a clinician's point of view, the only other options would be to work in a place that has CQC itself, is registered, like a private hospital or rooms or a aesthetic clinic or something that's already got their CQC up and running. That's another option, isn't it, for people if they're starting out? Or the other option is to I don't know if you know the wellbeing doctors, Ed Lynch over in Liverpool, who he has like a sort of,
Yes, I do.
yeah, like a membership subscribing thing so that you can set up and try it out almost for,
Yeah, and there are different models out there, and we often get asked. So the way we sort of advise is always on a case by case basis.
yeah,
So if you're unsure, I guess my advice would be, I don't like giving sort of blanket advice. So
yes,
um, one size doesn't always fit all. So it will depend on what you're doing and how many people in your team, and if you're on your own or there's other people. So we do offer a service on, do you need to register?
yeah,
What are you doing? Who's in the team? How many are? We can look at that, and that's just a really light touch piece of
great.
support.
So people can ring you up and book an appointment and talk it through because, like, you've highlighted, and that's really important for everybody to recognize who's listening to this, is that what's right for one person isn't right for the next.
Yeah, and we have actually launched for people who just need really small piece of advice. We do a power hour where you can, say if someone's like, "Do I need to register or not?" We'd probably book you in with one of our former inspectors and say, "Sit down, have a chat with this person, and let's talk it through."
Yeah, brilliant.
Um, yeah, so I'm always cautious on these sorts of things of giving that kind of blanket advice.
Yeah. No. I think that's brilliant. I think it's just important for that person listening to know that they have different choices. And again, you're doing your own due diligence, your own conversations, because running a business, the sooner you get used to the fact that it's about building relationships, sending messages, getting on calls with people, like understanding everything before you sign up to one thing or another. You need to have that knowledge and understanding and that personal contact with somebody, don't you, to know whether it's somebody that you can continue to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we finish, I want to come back to this entrepreneurship generally. You're very experienced yourself. You come from a healthcare background. You're still educating in the university, talking to people about entrepreneurship. Do you think entrepreneurship is something that everybody can do, that everybody can learn and everyone can be good at?
I think that's a really good question. Um, I do come from the mindset of you can do anything you want to do and believe in yourself. But the journey to entrepreneurship is definitely not the easy option. And I personally don't think it would suit everybody. It can be very consuming. Um, eh, it can be really tough. It's a bit of a game of snakes and ladders, and even hour. Sometimes we laugh hour by hour.
Yeah.
know? And I think my advice to anyone here would be, before you invest time and money, really think about, is this for you? It will take over. It will absolutely take over your life. And entrepreneurs get to a point where you can set up your team and you have that support, but in the early stages it can feel really consuming. So I would say, talk to as many people as you can, find your tribe. And I think the other thing that I would say is the journey to entrepreneurship can be a little bit lonely, because not everyone is going to understand
Mm.
this journey, and that's okay, because you have different people in your life for different things, different friends, different family members, and that doesn't mean that they're bad or they're not good for you. You just have different people for different things. But this find your tribe is so important, because you need to have some people, mentors, friends, who understand that journey, because it can feel a bit isolating.
Mm.
And I think that would be one of the key messages I would say. And those sort of phone a friend people. So like right now in my life, I still have Hiran, I still have Helen. They're kind of my phone a friends, and it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, for how old you are. You need that, because we are all human at the end of the day. And just to have that sounding board. I've also got a brilliant person in my team called Nitin. He's great sounding board for me. And just people who you can be honest and vulnerable with.
Yeah.
Um, and pick those people really wisely.
Mm. And those people aren't always in your immediate network, as you've said. And I think take me back to my sort of house jobs and junior doctor jobs. The network around you kept you going in really difficult times. You know, we used
Yeah.
to, I remember we changed our whole on-call system so that a bunch of us could work together. And,
Nice.
you know, we debriefed and we went through really difficult times. We understood each other. There was no way that I could have gone to some of my friends from school at that point and shared with them what was going on for
Yeah.
us from a work point of view. And it's the same with business. And you will have well-meaning people in your life who think you are totally bonkers
Yeah.
to be doing what you're doing. And,
I
you
can
know,
really relate to that, Joe.
yeah, they
What
might
are
be
you doing?
right.
I get this. What are you doing that for? Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah, I know. They might well be right. But, you know, if you have been thinking about something for a long time, it's been going round and round in your head, you've done all the qualifications, you've trained up in various things and it still won't leave you, then just take some action, get on the phone, speak to people in that world. For me, there was a lot of husbands of many of my medical friends were all in the business world. I remember we went away for a weekend once with the five sort of couples from this particular friendship group. And it was practically like a board meeting. There was like a marketing director, a finance director, and a practice manager. And I was sitting there going, what's a spreadsheet? Like 20 years ago, I don't understand. And they were like, oh, Jesus. But, you know, you've got to pick people's brains, but also, you know, at risk of making this an advertising campaign. But, you know, my Clarity 30-day course is exactly this. It's like, come in, see what this is all about, understand the reasons why you want to do this, look at what it is you're going to do, and then decide whether you're going to give this any more time, energy, effort, money. And if you're not, that is okay.
Yes, yes, and it's sitting in that, and that is okay. And I think what's quite nice about your program is it's quite succinct, isn't it? It's 30 days.
Yeah.
And I think you do need something exactly like that.
Mm.
Yeah. And a lot of people are still sort of managing other clinical roles while setting up a
Oh
business.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's surely that's a big thing that we should touch on, is that not giving, you know, not giving up the day job in terms of finances. Sometimes, obviously, people are really struggling with, you know, the NHS is on its knees and GP world is crazy. But just be very, very mindful of throwing in the towel before you have got something else up and running. You've got to be able to pay your bills.
Yeah, and I think also just to sort of share, I am still a registered pharmacist, and I have found ways over the last sort of 20 years to keep that up.
Yeah,
And sometimes that does feel like a lot more on top of everything else. But I'm really proud of that. And that's something, and it's personal to everybody,
yeah.
that I have managed to keep up. And just to have a bit of contingency, and everyone's different. A lot of people don't decide to do that, and it's very personal. But it's something to think about.
Yeah. And I'm exactly the same. I think it was 2019. I did, after my appraisal, I spoke to somebody within the appraisal unit and said, look, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to continue with my business ventures. And they eventually passed me right up to the top. And I got a phone call with somebody. I don't know her name, and I wish I did know her name, because we had a really great discussion. And I said, I think I need to give up my number and leave medicine now, because there was this hangover story about me not wanting to do medicine originally. And, you know, I was very much living that narrative. And she said to me, look, just hang on in there, do the least amount that you need to do to keep registered, but, you know, see if you can make it work for you, have conversations with people, because you never know what might happen. And she very much sort of led me down that whole, let's see if we can make it work for you, as opposed to me previously feeling like I wasn't doing it how I should be doing it. She was like, let's make it work for you. And now I feel like it's an absolute privilege and an honor when I go in and do my locum days, and I'm working in a fantastic practice, and I love being a part of the team. And also, like you've touched on at the beginning, all of these jigsaw pieces, I don't feel like I could actually coach and support and mentor medics that want to start their own businesses if I didn't have that, my feet fully grounded in what is happening in the NHS at the moment. I don't think I'd be able to do what I do with the, you know, with the sort of authenticity that I do it, because we're still in there and working with people and seeing patients, which is really important.
I think that's a brilliant story, and I think that's really helpful for others, because I think there's a lot of that debate, and I think it can feel really overwhelming. Like the business can be overwhelming enough, and then to try and keep up other things. And again, like, it's very personal, but I'm really glad that, like you, I'm really glad that I did do that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I think we could talk for hours, but I said I'd let you go. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, for talking so honestly about the reality of business, and for explaining to us a little bit more about what you do and why it's important. And I think also reframing that sort of CQC dread into something different, which, I think is really refreshing and important for people to have heard. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to find out more?
Thanks, Joe. So you can contact us through our website, which is, I think it's going to be in the notes as well,
Yeah,
isn't it? www.digitalhealthassurance.co.uk. Or you can email me directly, which is lucy@digitalhealthassurance.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find us on our Instagram channel. So I'll send them all over to you, Joe, and then
we'll pop
we can
that
go
in there.
from there.
Brilliant. We'll pop it in the show notes. And you've kindly given us a code as well for people to use for CQC services if they want to, so they get a little bit of money off that.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said before, we really pride ourselves on trying to find a way to work with people regardless of their business case or budget. We have a real range of clients, from small startups to market leaders, and we will always try and find something that works for somebody who
Brilliant.
needs help.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you so much for your time. We'll,
Thank you, Joe.
we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. I hope this episode has sparked some new ideas or challenged your thinking. Transitioning from medicine to business is not easy. It's about adapting our skills while embracing the unknowns of entrepreneurship. It can be nerve-wracking, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. Please feel free to reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just shoot me an email at joe@bendylegs.com for support. And don't forget to grab the free PDF from the show notes, From Stethoscope to Startup, which is your go-to guide and resource for diving into entrepreneurship. Many thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Thanks for spending your precious time with me.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.